Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Predictions and Speculation for Ahsoka. We're going to be talking about episode 3 or part 3 of the series coming out next week. Make sure you send in your comments down below. Let us know what you think could happen. Of course, if you're not liking the video, that really helps us out. Help us get to about 40 likes on this video. That would greatly help us. We're also on the way to 2,000 subscribers. It's been a long journey, and we appreciate all of your support. But if you haven't subscribed and you're watching this video, please do so. It'll help us out. Help us get to that milestone here soon. We will be doing a giveaway and a big special 2,000 subscriber episode, so all of your support will be greatly appreciated. We are doing live streams immediately after every new Ahsoka episode where you can ask us questions directly, and we're going to talk about the plot of the latest Ahsoka episode. We're also releasing our reviews out the same day as well. Let's get into the predictions here, though, because this is a show that warrants a lot of predictions just in general. We already put out a video. If you guys haven't checked it out, giving our predictions for kind of the entirety of the Ahsoka show in general, what big plot points we see happening across the entire show. And in these first 2 episodes, they were really solid, but they didn't really give us anything that we hadn't seen in the trailer, right? It's Ahsoka, Sabine, Hera, they're going on a mission to try to find Ezra and Thrawn. The bad guys are trying to bring back Thrawn. That's what we get in these first 2. So we're going to talk about both sets of characters here. Let's start with our main characters, the title character, Ahsoka. So let's talk about Ahsoka, Sabine, and Hera here. Sanak, what do you think their mission in the next episode is going to be? And what path do you see the kind of Ahsoka-Sabine relationship morphing into here down the road?
Well, I mean, the episode ends with Ahsoka saying, like, Padawan, like, take us away, right? Take us out. Obviously, a lot of the second episode is Hera being a mother, doing her motherly thing with every character almost. The fact that she can have Ahsoka back must have been incredible, even if they're not, like, super tight, because at least, like, someone who can maybe help her with experiences of losing Kanan and processing some of that. Someone who can, give a perspective as an older woman amongst with a bunch of like kids in the rebellion now that are maturing in a galaxy that is seemingly stable and they can demilitarize. Like there's a lot of things in that dynamic that paid off. But now we're really connecting back Ahsoka and Sabine, and Ahsoka has really taken the first 2 episodes and given it thought and is gonna let Sabine be more Sabine. I don't think so, to be honest. I feel like she'll it would be too convenient. I think Ahsoka still has a lot of blocks in place before she can like really become this next version of herself, because I've heard this criticism recently that people are like, well, she's Rosario's a great Ahsoka and chunks, but why some people are like thrown off is that she's very stoic in her portrayal. And is that just because she's not fully embodying the character like Ashley did, or was this a choice from the writers and Filoni? I'm pretty sure it's the latter, but I can see why some people are like, she doesn't feel like she's expressing herself after seeing 2 other females in very central roles having very strong emotions compared to her, right? And I'm very curious to see just how much more block she'll put in. I feel like she wants to just be like, let's continue. Let's continue in her mind. Things is like just like, yeah, back to what we were doing, situation training, whatever. But the reality of it's more like, yeah, we were in this position because Sabine and I weren't talking for 2 months, and this is how I trained her. Like, I want to see her not even realize the depth of her disconnect from us, Sabine. I think it's a little ambitious asking that, but if they can bring a little bit more of like clarity, levity to that portrayal to start off with, a lot more of these stoic, more actiony moments, I think would hit better. But I can kind of see where someone who's just been introduced to Ahsoka through live action starting to feel like she's a little too like, I'm a Jedi, but not a Jedi, but basically Jedi, and that's her whole character, right? I want to see these live action fans get a taste of what we started seeing all the way from 2008, from the most impetuous little girl to now like almost like a Jedi master, Jedi grandmaster level. I just personally think that relationship will just be and also another like eye-opening moment for her, and it's a good way for audiences to also understand that this is really a journey for Ahsoka. She seems so complete in so many ways. It's like, yeah, Anakin's apprentice, worked in the rebellion, survived death somehow, and survived the New Republic era. Like, this is too convenient for her. I'd like this to be like an eye-opening moment to start a full-on journey of like her place, her emotional well-being and her understanding of the Force and her role in it. Because I feel like in a similar way, we've seen a little bit more of the questions being posed by Baylan to himself by like starting off with this situation. Ahsoka has kind of just been running gunning it, but maybe this pause of sorts will allow her to realize she needs to like evolve or return to some of her roots.
Yeah, I think those are all good points. Ahsoka is obviously the title of the first episode, Master and Apprentice, seems to be the theme across the entirety of the season. It is one of the things in the promotional material, and you don't really know how accurate the promotional material is really going to be to the show as a whole, or just the beginning. The Ahsoka relationship with Sabine seems to be one of the major hooking points for both characters' growth, and we see that in these first two episodes. It is the kind of predominant relationship of the two episodes, with a focus more on Sabine's attachment to Ahsoka, probably more so because general audience members are less familiar with Sabine than even Ahsoka. But I think there's going to be an evolution of their relationship here. Hera, I don't see her role in the next episode really advancing to anything more than it's already been. I think she's going to be kind of the liaison between the New Republic and the Sabine Ahsoka group. We're going to see her cross back and forth. We still haven't seen that scene yet with her and Mon Mothma, but in general, I think Hera is not going to be a main focus of the next episode. I truly think the next episode is going to focus on the relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine, why it fell apart, how we patch it back up. We've only gotten hints of why it fell apart. This could be where we venture into possibly flashback type of territory, maybe not only with these characters, but also kind of a paralleling between Ahsoka and Anakin. And that kind of leads me into the other thing that I think a lot of this next episode could be about. We do know at the end of this episode, they do find out that the map reading thing is all on the planet Cetos. So they're going to there to try to find the place to read the map. We know Baylan's actively interested in Ahsoka, very much so, kind of in a way that Sabaoth is interested in Luke. That intrigue about what are Jedi like at this time. There's constantly lines in this show about not too many people being able to wield the Force. Not too many people know what it's like to have the burden of Force wielding, to know how that all works. And I think there's something that really intrigues Baylan about Ahsoka. I think we see that scene where the two of them confront each other in this next episode, because that looks like it's on Cetos. It looks like it's the same map room. That confrontation between the two of them, we could have Sabine versus Shin again. The line from Baylan to Ahsoka about Anakin spoke very highly of you in the trailer, I think we could see that play out, and maybe that perpetuates ultimately Ahsoka's willingness to try to reconnect with Sabine, to relearn from her past. We talked about, I think it was in our stream, we don't really see much of her perspective on the Jedi post finding out who Vader is. And so I think that would be really interesting to connect back to Ahsoka now learning her master became the worst evil the galaxy has ever seen. And how does she avoid doing that same thing with Sabine, even if Sabine has less power? And how does she avoid a war from Thrawn or other characters that makes the galaxy worse because of the guilt that she might feel from letting Anakin down? So I think over the next couple episodes, all this stuff probably won't be in one episode, but over the next couple episodes, we're going to see that progression and the compare and contrast between the Dark Jedi relationship, Sabine and Shin, and Anakin and Ahsoka, and then Ahsoka and Sabine, and we're going to see that all played out. That would be my prediction. But let's talk about those villain characters now, because we do have Baylan, Shin, and Morgan all together. We see Morgan on the Eye of Sion at the end of this episode, getting it all prepared. But we have Shin, Baylan, and the Inquisitor Marrok all together somewhere else. So they could be going to Cetos. They could not. How long does this Eye of Sion take to build? They're like, they look to be wrapping it up. And that leads us to like kind of the major plot point, the thing we all want to see, the thing we've only gotten one shot of just to tell you that he's in the show, is the Grand Admiral Thrawn. Are we going to get to him in the first half of the show? That means before episode 5. Or do we get into him the second half of the show? Sonic, where do you think the villain plot is going in this next episode? And do you think we actually get Thrawn maybe in episode 3?
It's a tough one. I feel like it'd be nice to have him at least have some like very almost like subliminal buildup. You can obviously use Morgan and her hauntings of voices. Maybe she picks up on stuff, even if it's not him per se. At least the voice of Thrawn would be like a good way to start it. Think it's a good episode though to like really build up his mystery and aura. Why we're getting Thrawn, what his role could be. Like I think one key thing as I'm processing this premiere episodes more and more, I immediately noticed, right? Like we talked about online, we talked on the review, the villains have almost created their first connections to each other. It's almost like a cohesive system that, if one part is a little lesser, the other part can use them in a way or cover for them, right? It feels like already there's a lot of dynamics and I can only see them growing further. And maybe this be an episode where, you have a Morgan who's like absolutely dedicated and believes Thrawn is the type to destroy all these things. I remember when he used my factories to like lay waste and all that, right? Then you could have obviously someone like Marrok, who's more of like kind of lived around the same time was used with him, and I kind of want him to be a character that remains quiet the whole show. I'd also love to see Shin and Baylan start having some development on their own, but maybe a little bit more opposing viewpoints. And I think these two, especially through Baylan, you can have like a real open dialogue about what is like the possibility of someone with this tactical mind, this brilliance, with eventual military might. What is his role in the galaxy? How would he reshape the galaxy, right? Because a key point that Shin was asking about in the second episode, I think, was what do we get out of this? And Balin's like power, but it wasn't almost like maniacal power to him. It was like it's power. Like even I can't process it right now. Maybe he truly does see Thrawn as like someone who can create an entirely new galaxy that we know of, right? Like it's not just Empire Rebels. Maybe it's something like what is so different about Thrawn? What is so scary and all that? Because he's a collector of arts. He picks and pulls from different artworks to attack his enemies and all that. I'm sure in some ways, even if like a Palpatine or someone is haunting Elsbeth and she's just going crazy, being mercenaries for Thrawn, but recent Marrok having that long-standing connection. I'm sure all of them, in another way, recursive way, were also selected potentially and unintentionally for Thrawn's return. I think he believes that they are the separate parts that, when wielded by him, are going to be incredible, but with each other, the more the time they spend together, the more it might get worse, might unwind and all that. So I think it'll be very interesting to see how they're starting to split hairs and then how Thrawn is built out of that. I think for me though, if they don't do something that philosophical and they were like want us to still have action, remember this is more of a Rebels like show, more of a Clone Wars like show, and obviously building off live action Mando expectations. That stuff might be a little bit minimal, maybe a couple scenes, and then I think we split the party, like you said. I think he is on Cetos Balin, maybe Shin is as well. Maybe we get the Forest fight. I don't know. I think that one with Marrok might be later. Maybe Morgan and someone else go for another part of the Eye of Sion. Maybe we get to see a little bit more understanding of what exactly the ship is going to do. Because I think with a name like that, with the scope that it's been shown at, that itself almost has to become another villain character. And I think that'd be pretty interesting. At the same time, this is the third episode, and I heard it's the shortest. I still think the villains, they're holding back on them. They feel like a second half explosion. Baylan might be the one to only develop because he talks about Anakin, Ahsoka, that connection is formed, and it's there to almost make him even more complicated, even more doubtful what he's doing, I feel like.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna go off of that idea of the leaked runtime for this episode. It's gonna be the rumor is about 40 minutes, a little less. So with credits, probably around the 35-minute range. And that means we're not gonna have much time to deal with other stuff. I do think it's another building episode for the villain specifically. I think it's a lot of dialogue. I think it's a lot of backstory. That's why I do think it'll lean more heavily into the heroes. I think we are getting more Ahsoka Sabine directly, like them training, them talking about philosophy, them talking about their past, all that stuff. But I think the injection of the villains will mostly be from Shin and Baylan. I do think that whole Cetos scene is going to happen. I think Baylan is trying to lure Ahsoka there, and maybe that's why he brings the map. Something he's just incredibly curious about Ahsoka, and it might be things he's heard about her being kind of a Jedi, but kind of not, just like him. Maybe he's trying to recruit her to his side. If the Dark Jedi have any type of Sith tendencies about progressing from apprentice to master, constantly building a stronger alliance, maybe he is trying to test Shin and see if Ahsoka is a worthy replacement. There could be that type of relationship. Shin seems ready to explode with anger and impatience, but we haven't seen it yet. Maybe this is something that pushes her over to the edge to where she's a completely different character for the second half of the show. I do think Morgan's role is mostly going to be tied to like walking around on the bridge of the Eye of Sion and just being like, "Is it ready yet?" type of thing. Like I don't think we're going to see too much more of her, but there could be some type of interesting look at building into that connection to Thrawn, where she says she hears his voice, he's calling to her. Is there, how do they communicate with Thrawn? And we talked about this before in our Q&A too, which is like Pelion supposedly has been in touch with him. Moff Gideon can't get in touch with Thrawn. He doesn't know how to reach him. Thrawn never comes to the Shadow Council meeting, yet the Shadow Council is convened by Thrawn. Somebody like Morgan Elsbeth can hear Thrawn calling to her. Somebody like Baylan seems to know Thrawn possibly personally and know what he represents. The aura and the cult of Thrawn is something that I think is really interesting here. The whole idea of the galaxy and people being obsessed with Thrawn is a much more Legends idea for Thrawn. It's the mystery and the literal legend of Thrawn being built up by Timothy Zahn post Thrawn trilogy, something he completely did not intend when he wrote that. And then as he started to flesh out the mythology around Thrawn, continued to build up that character in a variety of different ways and have his fingerprints be pretty much on everything major that happens during the original trilogy, post the original trilogy, and during the prequels. So maybe we could hear Thrawn's voice literally in a line with him talking to Morgan, some type of way of getting connected to her. But the more and more we're seeing of this show and the Eye of Sion and all that type of stuff, I expect the Eye of Sion to be finished at the end of this episode, and maybe at best we get that shot of Thrawn appearing on the bridge. But there's almost something like I get very like Loki and Avengers 1 vibes from that Thrawn shot. Like almost like they teleport him there, some way. Like he just appears there and turns around, and then we get like the line like, "Oh, you're ready," or something like that. "You're ready for me." Something where it's almost like he is brought there, not necessarily him arriving and standing on the bridge and be like, "Oh, you found me, now I'm taking command." It's more like this primal force they finally unleashed. I think at best we could see that at the very end of next episode, but outside of that, I don't think Thrawn will actually like have a major role in the next episode. But I think by episode 4, at least, definitely episode 5, he will be a major villain in this story. That's going to wrap it up for our predictions and speculation. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, if you haven't liked the video, please do so. It really helps us out. Comment below. Let us know your predictions and speculation. We are on the way to 2,000 subscribers. If you could please subscribe if you haven't, it'll really help us out, help us make that journey to 2,000. We will be doing a giveaway and a big 2,000 subscriber special. So make sure you subscribe to help us get there, and then you can eventually partake in all of that. We also have just launched YouTube memberships and Patreon. Check out those tiers and see if there is one that is right for you. Any support would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching our videos. Make sure to come back next week for the live stream and Q&A for Ahsoka, as well as our review, and of course, more predictions and speculation.